Hello, welcome to Fabulous Food. Today we're going to be making the cheese and apple coleslaw recipe in your book. Now the method says, number 1, use scissors, snip your spring onion and place in a bowl. So here are my spring onions. You can see they're a little bit dirty on the end, so the first thing I'm going to do is give them a rinse under the tap. So when I've washed these, I've just pulled back these dirty little scruffy bits on the bottoms so that they don't end up in our coleslaw. And we're actually going to use our scissors to chop our spring onions. Scissors are a marvellous thing. You can prepare lots of things in the kitchen with them. So we're going to just chop off the bottom and chop off the top. Now when you've got a spring onion, sometimes these leaves will be a little bit floppy. That one's not very nice, and you know that's not going to be very nice to eat. So we're going to get rid of those as well. Mrs. Halloran calls them her sad leaves. So on this one I'm going to chop the bottom off like that, and I'm going to chop the leaves off because they weren't very nice. Whereas on this one, that's probably not as nice to eat, so I'm going to chop that one off, but I'll leave the other one. Do the same for these and this one, like that. And then put all your bits, all your waste, either into your compost bin, or if you've got a compost bin at home, or depending on where you live, which council your house is in, you might have a food waste bin like this one. Pop them in there. Don't just throw them in the bin. They can be recycled in some way by someone. And then we're going to use our scissors, and we're just going to cut our spring onion up into pieces. So you can either do this onto your chopping board, or you could do it straight into the bowl that you're making your cheese and apple coleslaw in. So I've got all my spring onion in the bowl now. If there are any big chunks in there, just pick those out again and cut them in half so you don't have a big chunk in with all the small ones. And now we're going to prepare our carrots. So I've given these a rinse under the tap. You can see that they're glistening. Now I wouldn't normally peel my carrots, but if you want to peel your carrots before you grate them, you can. So you would cut the tail off like that on each of them. There are two kinds of peelers, a straight peeler like this or a Y-shaped peeler, and we have both of these in school for you to use. So the straight peeler, you put the blade onto the carrot like that and you pull it down to peel the carrot. The Y-shaped peeler, again, it's the cutting blade is inside, it's in the middle, so you have to make sure that that's lined up with the carrot. Pull that down and peel your carrots in that way, and then we can start grating them. So I've tailed my carrots today, but I haven't actually cut the top off because that gives us something to hold on to when we're grating. So on your grater, you want the large holes to grate your carrot, and if you hold the carrot at a slight angle, you get a greater surface area as you're grating. And you can keep going, moving your hand up a little bit, keep your fingers away from the grater. You might need to turn it round a little bit. And you can see that that top just gives us a little handle. When you get to there, you can either nibble that off and eat it if you want to, or put it in your compost box and keep going with the other 2 carrots. So your recipe book says to use 2 carrots. Now you notice that I've actually used 3, and that's because mine were slightly smaller, so I wanted to make sure I had enough carrot. You can put your hand inside the grater to scrape the carrot out, but don't scrape down this side because we know that's sharp, and that's actually what's grated the carrot for us in the first place. So we take our bowl again, and we tip our carrot into our bowl like that. Scrape the bits off the board, and then we'll be ready to chop our next vegetable. So carrots and spring onions are done. Now we're going to move on. So next we're going to prepare our cabbage. Now there are a number of different kinds of cabbage. Your recipe book says to use a small white cabbage. I haven't actually got a white cabbage today. I've got a red one, and it's definitely not small. So I'll show you what to do with that in a minute. This is a tender heart cabbage. This one's got some sort of scruffy sad leaves on it, so those would need peeling off before we use it. So obviously there's a white cabbage, and there's something called a Savoy cabbage, which is my favourite, but my delivery man didn't bring that one this week. So I'm going to be using a bit of red cabbage to show you how to prepare this, and a little bit of the tender heart cabbage as well. So if you bring a cabbage this big into school, Mrs. Halloran or I would cut it for you to start with, because you need a big knife to get through it. So we would use a bridge hold, just like we teach you to do, but with a big sharp knife, we will just cut it in half, keeping our fingers well out of the way of the blade, like that. So I'm cutting all the way around to start with, and then I'm going to apply a bit more pressure and see if I can get the knife through there, like that. And then you can see how beautiful it is on the inside. And because it's such a big cabbage, I would then use my bridge hold again, cut through the middle like that, and just use a quarter of a cabbage that size. Please don't use a big sharp knife yourself at home. Get somebody, an adult, to do it for you. So the next thing we'd need to do with this cabbage is to remove the core. So a bit like we do with an apple, pop it flat side down, pincer grip on the top, knife at a 45-degree angle, rock the knife through the cabbage like that to remove the core. And then we're going to slice it finely. So you find a little corner like that, come across, you can see those fine slices. They're beginning to get quite long now. So the next job is to turn it round, find another little corner, come across again so you get smaller, shorter pieces again, turn it round, come across, and keep going for the whole of your cabbage. If you're going to use a tender heart or a Savoy cabbage, you probably will need to peel off a few of the outside leaves like this. They're a bit scruffy, they won't taste very nice. You want to get down to the nice crisp ones like that. So again, I'd use my bridge hold, I'd cut through the middle of my tender heart cabbage. You need to rock the knife a bit. The actual core of a cabbage is really quite solid, so you end up with two halves. See how beautiful that one is? That'd be a lovely thing to draw if you've got a bit of spare time. Now there's not as much cabbage on one of these, so I'm not going to actually use a quarter of it. I will use the whole lot, but I'm going to cut down again with my bridge hold so I can get to the core. So flat side on the worktop, cut the core out like that, and then using my knife, come across. So I've got my pincer grip here to hold the cabbage together, and I'm just doing lots of nice thin slices all the way to the bottom, and I'll repeat that with this piece, finish off cutting this, and then we'll be ready to put them in the bowl. I've finished cutting up my tender heart cabbage, and I've decided I'm not going to cut this piece up because actually I've already got enough cabbage there and I don't want it to drown out the spring onions and the carrots in my bowl. So now I'm going to add the cabbage to the bowl. So I've got my cabbage in my bowl now. Number 4 says cut the cheese into small cubes and add to the bowl. So I've got a block here of 100 grams of cheddar cheese. Your recipe says a hard cheese. So again, we're going to use the bridge hold, and I'm probably going to cut twice this way, and then I'll come across and cut it into cubes. So holding my fingers well away from the knife in my bridge, I'm going to gently rock my knife down like that, come across again, and my cheese is beginning to crumble. But that doesn't matter because we're going to cut it up anyway, like that. And if you take one of those slices, cut it in half again, like that, and then you can come across and cut it into little cubes. You don't want them too big, you don't want a whole mouthful of cheese. So again, cut that piece up like that, and then just come across and cut them into cubes, and keep going till you've done the whole block of cheese. So I've added my cheese to the bowl, and the last ingredient I'm going to prepare is the apple. We've left the apple till last because as soon as we cut the apple and it's exposed to the air, it will begin to go brown. So we want to get it in the bowl quickly and then mix the mayonnaise onto it to prevent that happening. So bridge hold, knife through the bridge, rock the knife gently down to the bottom like that, flat side of the apple, turn to the chopping board, bridge hold again, knife through the middle of the bridge, turn the apple, knife at 45 degrees to cut the core out, just like we did with fruit salad. 1, 2, same for this one, through the bridge, cut the core like that, and then we're going to cut each piece of apple in half that way, and then come across, pincer grip here, cut it into cubes about the same size as the cheese to keep everything uniform. Bridge hold, cut through the middle, and then you could, if you wanted to, cut each piece individually if that's easier for you, and then put them into the bowl. So we're on to number 6 now, which is to mix in the mayonnaise, and then we're going to season our product. So I've got all of my ingredients in the bowl. It looks beautiful, real rainbow of colour, so we know it's going to be good for us. I'm going to get my mayonnaise. Your recipe says 4 tablespoons of mayonnaise, so I'll measure it out for you. If I was cooking for myself at home, I'd probably just squirt it straight into the bowl. We can always add a little bit more at the end if we don't think we've got enough. That's 3, 4. If you don't like mayonnaise, or if you haven't got any at home, you could use salad cream. You can see my mayonnaise is there. So to mix it, we're going to gently turn the ingredients from the middle, round the outside and back to the middle again. What we don't want to do is bruise all those lovely fresh ingredients that we've spent time chopping, especially the apple. So we're just going to keep mixing like that until the mayonnaise is evenly distributed. You'll need to make sure you get right down to the bottom of the bowl, so you don't have ingredients at the bottom that don't have any mayonnaise in them. And you can see now it's beginning to come together. Be patient, just keep working around like that. Depending on how wet you like your coleslaw, you might want to add a little bit more mayonnaise to it, but I think that's just about right for my tastes. So now I'm going to add some seasoning. I'm going to add some pepper and just a tiny bit of salt, because the cheddar's already got a lot of salt in it and I don't want to put too much salt in my product. But you can put as much pepper in as you like. Mrs. Halloran likes black pepper, she'd be putting a lot in. And then a tiny bit of salt. Give it one final stir. To have a little taste at this stage if you wanted to make sure you've got the seasoning right. And then if we were making this at school, we'd get you now to put it into your box to take it home. But as you are already at home, you can leave it in the bowl that you've made it in, or if you wanted to, you could just put a small portion into a prettier bowl to serve with your meal. So I hope you enjoy that. Please give us some feedback on Google Classroom. Send us some photographs so we can see your coleslaws. And yeah, we look forward to seeing what you do. Goodbye.